I stood there in heels that cost less than their valet tip, the yellow cab pulling away behind me as cameras flashed for people who used to work for me. Vanessa's laugh rang out like glass breaking, sharp, on purpose. "At least get a black car if you're going to embarrass yourself," she said, clinking her glass against my ex-husband's. They didn't know I still controlled the shell company behind their luxury fleet. They didn't know tomorrow's board vote would cost them their concierge perks, their custom tags, and eventually their cars. Let them laugh. I was already driving the silence that would follow. Before we begin, may I ask, where in this big, beautiful world are you listening from? It's always a quiet honor to know who's sharing this space. Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The yellow cab pulled up in front of the Fairmont Crestwood just as twilight dipped the city in its golden hush. Cameras snapped, not for her, but for the parade of guests arriving in sleek black sedans and matte-finished Teslas. Veronica stepped out slowly. The cab driver popped the trunk. She waved him off, carrying her own clutch and coat. A valet glanced at her with confusion before quickly averting his eyes. The gravel under her heels cracked louder than it should have. Inside, the ballroom gleamed with glass chandeliers, soft jazz, and the gleam of old money dressed in new wealth. Veronica paused at the threshold, gathering her breath. Her dress, navy silk, deliberately understated, was a quiet defiance in a room that reeked of curated opulence. A woman in a crimson gown leaned toward Vanessa Whitmore near the marble bar. Vanessa laughed too loudly, wrists draped casually over her champagne flute. Then she saw her. Vanessa leaned toward Caleb and tilted her head, just enough for her words to carry across the floor. "At least get a black car if you're going to embarrass yourself," she said, with the sweet venom of someone who knew she wouldn't be checked. Caleb smirked. That's her retirement flair. The words hit like ice water. Veronica didn't flinch. She didn't look at them. She let her gaze drift across the room like none of it mattered. The hushed whispers, the forced smiles, the subtle glances over champagne rims. She stepped toward the bar and accepted a glass of water from a silent waiter. No garnish, no smile. Just tap, not even sparkling. The distance between her and the rest of the room grew with each passing minute. No one approached her, though she caught eyes flicking her way, calculating, curious. Vanessa's presence worked like a firewall. Her whispers, her proximity to Caleb, her decades of social engineering. They pulled people toward her like a sun and burned anyone who strayed too far. Veronica sipped her water. Her hands were steady, but her jaw clenched and unclenched like a metronome ticking inside her skull. She stood there for 15 full minutes before Lexi appeared. It was subtle, a hand on her elbow, a voice just above a whisper. "Walk with me?" They slipped into the side hallway near the staff elevators, where the music faded and the overhead lights hummed like tired nerves. Lexi's face was drawn tight with something between fury and pity. "I saw," she said. Her heels clicked to a stop. "I'm sorry." Veronica finally looked at someone. "For what?" Lexi hesitated. "That was cruel, Caleb, Vanessa, all of it." "Cruel?" Veronica tilted her head. "Cruel would have been me showing up in red, drunk, and with someone half my age." Lexi cracked a breathless half-laugh. "You look like you own the building." "I used to," Veronica said softly, eyes wandering to the edges of the carpet, the trim, the little imperfections that hadn't been there when she hosted events like this. "Now I pay for a one-bedroom with water damage and a property manager who doesn't return calls." Lexi's lips pressed into a line. "You don't have to keep showing up like this." "I do," Veronica replied, voice firm now. "I show up so they don't forget that I'm not gone, that they haven't buried me yet." Lexi searched her face for a long second, then slowly, "You've got something planned, don't you?" Veronica didn't answer, but the silence curled between them like smoke. From down the hallway, a waiter peeked in. "Ms. Harper, they're about to announce the sponsors." Lexi held up a finger. "1 minute." When the waiter retreated, she looked at Veronica again. "Whatever it is, don't let them change who you are." Veronica smiled. It was faint, tight. "Lexi, they already did." A sudden shift in the music signaled something. The string quartet paused. Applause fluttered in from the ballroom. "I should get back," Lexi said, but her hand lingered a moment on Veronica's arm before she stepped away. Veronica turned toward the sound of clapping. Her water glass was still cold in her hand. She walked slowly to the threshold again, stopping just short of entering. From where she stood, she could see Vanessa up on stage beside Caleb. Both beaming like politicians, Vanessa tapped the mic. "We're thrilled to welcome everyone tonight. This cause means everything to us." Behind them, the projector screen flickered to life. A tribute video began to roll. Veronica's heart stilled. The screen showed archival footage of Caleb's company over the years. Images of success, expansion, charity, and then a photo, one she hadn't seen in years. Her, Veronica. Smiling, shaking hands with the governor. The caption underneath read, "Caleb Whitmore and Founding Team, 2012. But her name was gone, cropped out, erased. Veronica took one slow step forward, then another, and another, until her water glass slipped, unnoticed from her hand, and shattered at her feet. The cab ride home was silent. No music, no small talk, just the muted hum of tires on asphalt and the occasional blink of streetlights painting the windows. Veronica sat with her arms crossed. The silk of her navy dress wrinkled from hours of holding her posture like armor. The hem had dragged slightly in the bathroom, picking up a smear of some stranger's glitter. The shattered glass still echoed behind her, somewhere between her ears and her ribs. When she reached her apartment, 6th floor walk-up, buzzer jammed, hallway light flickering, she didn't take off her heels. She dropped her coat on the kitchen chair, poured herself a glass of wine she wouldn't drink, and opened her laptop with a click that felt too loud in the quiet. Password. Facial recognition. Click, click, click. She didn't hesitate. Straight to the files Jordan had dropped into the shared encrypted drive that morning. Lux Ride Fleet Lease Disclosures. 2023-2025 Term Sheets. Coastal Mobility Group Ownership Breakdown. Her fingers hovered for a moment, then opened the PDFs one by one, her eyes scanning with a precision born not of anger but of memory. She'd written contracts like these in her sleep once. Release schedules, residual exposure clauses, corporate debt offsets. None of it scared her. Coastal Mobility Group. She clicked open the shareholder breakdown. Her breath didn't catch. Not really. She had suspected, but suspicion was different than proof. Blind trust allocation, 9.04%. The name of the trust was familiar. Granger RST LLC, one of the holdings she'd tucked away before the divorce. Jordan had structured it that way on purpose. She sat back. A sharp breath left her like a valve being released. They had no idea. A message pinged into her phone. "Jordan, on standby. You want full control?" Veronica typed slowly, thumbs deliberate. Just enough to feel the shift. The reply came seconds later. "Copy. You'll feel it." She opened another document. A draft purchase clause for a small subsidiary that handled vehicle title routing and insurance disputes. A back-end logistics company nobody had paid attention to in years. Jordan had flagged it earlier that week with a note. "Sign this when you're ready to be invisible." She signed it now, digitally. No hesitation, one acquisition through one shell company linked to another, the same legal architecture Caleb had used for a decade. Only this time, the puppeteer wasn't smiling on stage. She was in a dark apartment, alone, with a cold glass of untouched wine and no need for applause. There was a knock at the door. She didn't move. It knocked again, softer this time. Veronica rose, stepped slowly, looked through the peephole. Jordan. She unlatched the door and opened it just enough. "You move fast." He stepped in without invitation. "You're not the only one with something to prove." She motioned to the screen. They leased their entire urban fleet. Every single Lux Ride vehicle in Chicago, LA, Miami, DC. All under Coastal. And now, just under 10% of that moves when I say so. Jordan grinned, a little too impressed. "You sure you don't want to go for controlling interest?" "I don't need the wheel," she said. "Just the brake pedal." He let out a low whistle. Cold. Calculated. He reached into his bag and pulled out 2 manila folders. "Shell LLCs are ready. Movement starts Monday. It'll be noisy in the markets, but not traceable. They'll assume it's a price correction or end-of-year repositioning." Good. She took the folders without looking. No one checks the foundation until the walls crack. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Lexi. Mom's still making jokes about the cab. Says yellow is your brand now. Veronica stared at the screen for a long time, then slowly typed back. Tell her yellow's easy to miss, until it doesn't stop. Jordan raised an eyebrow as he caught the tail end of the text. You planning to hit them with something big? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned back to her laptop, opened a map, and scrolled through Lux Ride's routing grid, city by city. Dozens of blue pins, hundreds of vehicles, and all of them quietly dependent on the one company no one remembered she owned. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Not yet, she said, but soon they'll feel the pull. And behind her, somewhere deep in the night, the city kept moving, unaware that its engine had just changed hands. The coastal wind hit her like a secret. Quiet, sharp, and just cold enough to remind her she didn't belong here anymore. La Jolla was a place for sealed lips, side wealth, and houses with names instead of numbers. It hadn't changed. Neither had the people. Veronica stepped out of the hired car, a matte charcoal Maybach this time, heels clicking against imported stone as she walked toward the private terrace suite at the Valencia Ocean Club. The sea murmured below, and champagne flutes clinked softly behind frosted glass doors. Inside, the room buzzed with the kind of calm that came from dangerous people playing polite. Not a single face looked surprised to see her, just vaguely interested, like they were waiting to see which version of Veronica Harper had shown up today. She didn't sit right away. She let her eyes sweep the space. Leather chairs, 2 silent servers, 3 men she knew by reputation, and 1 woman who used to be her fiercest competitor. No smiles, just nods. I won't waste your time, she said, placing her black leather folder on the table. I'm here to move quickly and keep things quiet. There was a pause, the kind that signals power shifting. One of the men, Dalton Rice, sat forward. You're here about your stake in Coastal? Veronica's tone stayed measured. About folding it into something more efficient. A smirk tugged at the corner of another's mouth. Marcus, if she remembered correctly. Efficient is a loaded word. So is legacy, Veronica replied. That ended the posturing. The folder opened. Inside, 2 purchase offers, both with premium buyouts and 0 media exposure clauses. The numbers weren't outrageous, but they didn't have to be. These weren't the type to bleed for ego. They bled for liquidity, for silence, for the clean exits they could write off by morning. 20 minutes later, 2 signatures were on the page. Veronica stood without fanfare. Marcus chuckled as he closed the folder. Guess heels are the new hostile takeover. She looked him dead in the eye. Only when flats would have let you run. As she left, her phone buzzed once. Jordan? Jordan, you now control 2 board seats and the purse strings. Congrats, boss, she texted back mid-step. Schedule a board meeting. My office will send a name. Don't link it to me. Jordan. A non-meeting. Got it. Anything else? Veronica stared out over the water for a long moment. The waves curled below like they knew something. Veronica. Run the client roster. All tiers. I want eyes on everything. The car picked her up an hour later. Inside, Jordan had already uploaded the roster to the drive. She reviewed it in silence, scrolling through hundreds of names. Most were corporate clients, media execs, law firms, energy consultants, and none of them mattered until she reached the premium executive tier. She tapped. 2 names near the bottom of the list, Caleb Whitmore, Vanessa Whitmore. Vehicle, BMW 7 Series. Custom executive trim lease term, 24-month service class. Lux Ride Black. Concierge priority. Her expression didn't shift, not right away, but her fingers stilled. She tapped into their service history, locations, airport pickups, reimbursed miles. Vanessa had her car detailed weekly. Caleb's assistant had called 4 times last month to complain about minor delays. Veronica's voice was quiet when she finally called Jordan. Keep their names in the system, she said. Don't flag them, don't change their service. He hesitated. Okay. Just mark them, she added. Silently, I want eyes on every mile. Jordan exhaled slowly, like someone who knew not to ask questions. Understood, he said. The call ended. Veronica sat back, letting the name Caleb Whitmore pulse at the top of the screen like a countdown clock. Outside, the Maybach turned down the coast road as the sun sank lower, carving gold across the Pacific. Veronica reached down, slipped off her heels, and placed them neatly beside her. Barefoot now, steady, because the next time she made them trip, it wouldn't be over words or glass. It would be over ground they didn't know she owned. The sunlight was too clean, the kind that made the ocean look like it had something to prove. Veronica stood at the edge of the parking lot, watching seagulls strut around the polished bumpers of imported cars, and wondering how many of these people had leased their lives, the same way they'd leased their vehicles. Shiny, overextended, and destined to be returned scratched. She adjusted her sunglasses and walked through the front gates of the Crescent Point Yacht Club. Brunch was already in full swing. Linen napkins, monogrammed menus, Bloody Marys served like statements. There was a soft jazz trio near the dock, the kind of music that didn't so much play as hover. Caleb's laugh cut through it all, just a little too loud, just a little too polished, like he'd rehearsed his charm on the drive over. Veronica spotted them immediately. Center table, perfect view. Too far from the buffet to get messy, close enough to the water to matter. Vanessa's sunglasses matched her mimosa, and Caleb's hand rested possessively on the back of her chair. Lexi was there too, seated across from them, half leaning into a conversation with a couple Veronica didn't recognize. Her smile was pleasant, but her eyes were somewhere else, scanning. Veronica approached without flourish. Vanessa saw her first. "Oh, good. You made it," she said, faux warm, lifting her glass half an inch. We were starting to wonder if yellow cabs were banned from the marina. Caleb didn't rise, just grinned. "We were just telling everyone. We upgraded both cars this week. Fully blacked out, custom tags, concierge swap included. Lux Ride really stepped it up for us." He tapped something on his phone, turned it to show her. A photo of the two new BMWs, parked side by side in their driveway like status trophies. Black grille, black tint, black wheels. A silent flex. "This," Vanessa said, resting her hand on his arm, "is what success looks like." Veronica slid into the only empty chair at the table and took a small sip of the water already poured for her. Cold lemon slice floating just right. Her smile was soft, painless. "How long is the lease term?" she asked, voice low, as if she were asking about the weather. Caleb leaned back like he was giving a press statement. 3 years. We locked in low before the pricing model changed. Got the last batch with the concierge priority clause. Custom coverage too, no blackout dates." Vanessa beamed. "And unlimited airport mileage. They called us to offer it. Said they wanted flagship customers who reflect the brand." Veronica nodded slowly. "You do reflect something." She reached for the menu but didn't look at it. Just let her fingers trace the edge. Caleb raised an eyebrow. "You say that like it's a bad thing." "I didn't say anything at all," Veronica said, voice like velvet. She finally looked at him, really looked, for the first time in months. "But it's nice to see you both investing in something dependable. Leasing is underrated." Lexi sipped her coffee, but her gaze darted between them, watching. It was a small thing, but Lexi saw it, the smirk, just the flicker of it at the corner of Veronica's mouth, as Caleb kept talking about how Lux Ride had elevated the standard of executive transport. The smirk wasn't cruel. It was worse than that. It was patient. Lexi leaned back, folding her arms across her chest. Her grandmother hadn't touched her water again. She hadn't asked a single follow-up question, but she'd listened to every word about the lease, the perks, the years Caleb thought he had carved out safely in ink. The table continued to chatter, someone laughing at a story Vanessa told about valet mishaps in Palm Springs. Veronica smiled at all the right moments. Her sunglasses stayed on. But beneath the table, her phone buzzed once. "Jordan. Just flagged the concierge override system. Their tags are coded. You'll have full blackout capability within 72 hours. She didn't reply. Didn't need to. Lexi caught the faintest shift in her expression. Not smugness. Not victory. Just inevitability. Like the kind of weather you see on the horizon and know, without doubt, is coming for everyone. Sunday night wrapped the sky in that heavy kind of dark, the kind that doesn't twinkle or shift, just settles like a sealed envelope. Veronica sat at her kitchen table, lights dimmed, laptop open, glasses on. Her silk blouse from brunch hung off the back of the chair, forgotten. The only sound was the quiet tick of the system clock in the corner of the screen, and the occasional drip from the kitchen faucet that never quite sealed shut. She was already logged into Coastal Mobility Group's internal leasing dashboard. A part of her almost hoped it would feel different, that there'd be a rush, a finality, some kind of echo when her access hit executive clearance. But there was no fanfare, just quiet authority, the kind that lived in drop-down menus, granular toggles, audit histories. Veronica navigated the client database with muscle memory. She wasn't searching at random. She knew exactly where to go. Client: Whitmore, Caleb and Vanessa. Account: active status, executive tier lease. Concierge: black access. Flagged. Past due payment: 2022, Q3. Prior 1. Early wear on return 2021 vehicle. She let the screen sit there for a moment, eyes narrowing. The past due payment had been resolved, but late was late. And the early wear flag? That was what made her fingers tighten on the trackpad. It had been noted by a fleet manager in LA. Scratches on the driver's side door, trim separation near the console, faint smoke odor, nothing catastrophic. But in her world, it only took a crack. Veronica leaned back, then clicked into the policy admin panel. Scrolling, searching, there it was. The draft Jordan had floated earlier in the week. Policy update proposal. Client risk reassessment tier applies to clients with prior flags for lease violations, wear damage, or delayed payments. Retroactive, yes, applies to contracts initiated before 2024 Q1. Effects: disables automatic renewal incentives and concierge extension perks. Review status at lease end is required. The kind of update that would fly under the radar until it didn't. Clean, legal, not punitive, just cautious, calculated. She toggled the approval flag. The system blinked. Confirm board notification? Yes. The digital notice went out. Secure, internal, encrypted. Within the hour, the votes came in. Board vote: Rise Morandi Harper, Veronica, Quan Hargraves. 4-1, enough. Caleb and Vanessa's account now carried a new label. Client tag. Reassessment required at renewal. No discount extensions. Veronica didn't smile. Not yet. Her phone buzzed. Jordan. Vote passed. Whitmores are tagged. Want to tighten it more? Penalty interest clause is an easy add. She stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Veronica. No. Let's give them the illusion a little longer. He replied with a thumbs up emoji, then immediately unsent it. She almost laughed. Almost. Instead, she navigated back to the dashboard, opened her message drafts, and composed a short note to the board. Thank you for your prompt response on today's policy item. Moving forward, I suggest we open Q4 with a broader client reassessment audit to protect high-value assets. My office will prepare a proposal by Friday. VH. She hit send, then logged out. Veronica stood and walked to the window, barefoot again, the tiles cool under her feet. Across the street, a man walked his dog under a busted streetlight, unaware of how many things in his world moved, because someone like her whispered yes in a quiet room. She took a breath and finally sipped the wine she'd left untouched 2 nights ago. It had gone flat, but the taste? It was starting to feel like control. And somewhere across town, Caleb Whitmore was probably pouring himself another scotch, still believing he'd locked in 3 years of luxury, still proud of his custom tags and concierge perks, still unaware of the email that had changed everything, the one he'd never be copied on. The phone call took 6 minutes. 5 of them were silence. Veronica sat in her home office, the blinds angled just enough to catch the city's blue glow. Her laptop was closed. This wasn't the kind of conversation you documented. It was the kind where words were selected like chess moves, not to explain, but to suggest. Ms. Harper, the venue director said carefully, you're asking for something that would raise questions. Then don't raise them, Veronica said. Her voice was even. Just lower her name. Another pause. I assume the foundation will maintain its current donation level. It'll increase by 12% before fiscal year end. Click. No more objections. The Crescent Point Event Pavilion, a sprawling glass and marble fortress along the bay, had a wait list longer than some marriages. But what most people didn't know was that its state-of-the-art renovations, its media room, its private security teams, all of it had been funded in part by a series of anonymous gifts from a family office that never showed its face on paper. Her family office. They'd named the boardroom after some dead philanthropist to keep it clean, but Veronica had seen the original grant paperwork. She'd had Jordan tuck it into their holdings before her name ever disappeared from the company. The gala Vanessa was organizing, the one splashed across invites with her monogram name, was set to take place there in 10 days. Now, the coordinator access portal would show a locked screen by morning. Vanessa's credentials revoked. Veronica watched the screen as her inbox refreshed. One new message. Subject. Update. Gala event canceled. She opened it. Due to a conflict in donor funding allocations, we regret to inform you that the Fall Philanthropy Gala scheduled for next weekend has been canceled. We thank you for your support and understanding as we reassess the future of this event. No names, no blame. Just enough vagueness to make it sound like an accounting error, and enough force to leave Vanessa scrambling for answers she wasn't owed. Moments later, her phone buzzed. Tamara. Not all heroes wear lapel pins. Some just press delete at the right time. Veronica allowed herself one small breath of amusement. Tamara had always understood the architecture of revenge. That it didn't require fire, only precision. The second buzz came barely a minute later. Unsaved number, she answered. Why wasn't I told? Caleb's voice came sharp and panicked, like someone realizing the plane was descending too fast and no one was in the cockpit. The board's already been notified. Donors are calling. What the hell happened? Veronica didn't answer right away. She let the silence build. Then, calmly, ask your wife. The line stayed open a second too long. Then, click. Veronica lowered the phone and stared at her reflection in the black of her monitor. The light from the hallway cut across her face like a scar. Her hands didn't tremble. On her desk sat a copy of the original gala program. She turned it over slowly, reading the name that had once been printed in glossy script. Event Chair, Vanessa Whitmore. She picked up a pen, crossed it out, and wrote in block letters beneath it. Event Chair, canceled across town. In the kitchen of a too-large house with panoramic windows and a wine fridge that never worked right, Vanessa Whitmore was standing in a silk robe, staring at her tablet, trying to re-access the event portal. It showed a red error bar, access denied. Her finger jabbed the screen. Nothing. Again, still nothing. Caleb entered behind her, still on his phone, voice taut. The pavilion says they pulled all support, that they reallocated resources. Did you piss someone off? She didn't look at him. It's probably a glitch. I'll call the director tomorrow. He stepped closer. You said the donors were solid. You said this gala was yours? It is, she snapped, too quickly. Then fix it. He turned and walked away before she could say anything else. Vanessa stared at the screen again. The error message blinked once more, then disappeared entirely. She didn't know it yet, but she wouldn't get back in. Not tomorrow, not ever. And somewhere, in a room with no spotlight, no mic, no applause, the real host had just closed the curtain before the performance could even begin. The invoice came on a Tuesday. Vanessa was in the middle of a full glam appointment at home. Lashes curled, gel setting in her hair, half listening to a podcast about elite alignment, when her phone buzzed. A notification from LuxRide. At first, she assumed it was the usual concierge ping. Schedule confirmation, valet wash, maybe a satisfaction survey she wouldn't answer. Then she saw the subject line. Rate adjustment, risk tier reclassification. She froze. The esthetician paused. Tweezers midair. You okay? Vanessa didn't respond. Her eyes scanned the email. New monthly lease rate, $3,164. Bar 81 Tosat, up from $2,327 dollars. Effective immediately. Reason, policy 4.3b. Client risk tier reassessment. Her voice went sharp, slicing through the room. They're punishing us for being loyal? She jumped up, towel still around her shoulders, nearly sending the tray of tools crashing to the floor. What is this garbage? She dialed support. Straight through the premium concierge line, a voice, smooth and neutral, answered within seconds. Thank you for calling Lux Ride Executive Services. This is Marcus. How can I assist you today? Vanessa didn't let him finish. You can explain why I'm being charged over $1,600 more per month for the same damn car. There was a pause. Click-clack of keyboard. Yes, ma'am. It looks like your account was reclassified under risk tier pricing due to policy 4.3b. This was applied following a reassessment of select executive clients. Reassessment, Vanessa spat. We've been with you for 6 years. That's loyalty. I understand, ma'am, Marcus said, robotic now. But policy 4.3b outlines criteria for retroactive evaluations. I can send you a copy. Don't you dare send me another email. Get me someone higher up. I'm afraid the matter is marked as closed by upper management. Vanessa slammed the call button, then opened her laptop, typing furiously. Caleb had just walked in from a golf meeting, tossing his keys on the counter when she turned the screen toward him. They raised our rate, he blinked. Who? Lux Ride. He skimmed the numbers. That's a mistake. I'll escalate. She watched him type. Calm. Too calm. She didn't know it, but Caleb had just sent a direct email to the contact listed on the internal escalation form. 2. V. Harper MG Foundation GRP.com. Subject, urgent. Executive rate review request. I believe there's been an error in our classification under policy 4.3b. We've had uninterrupted service and consistent renewal for years. Please advise on override or reclassification options. C. Whitmore. He didn't know whose inbox he'd just landed in. Veronica saw the subject pop up while sipping her morning coffee. She didn't forward it. She didn't delegate it. She simply flagged it for Jordan. Within 10 minutes, he replied. From executive.inquiries CICMG Foundation GRP.com to Caleb Whitmore. Subject. Executive rate review request. Dear Mr. Whitmore, thank you for your inquiry. Following executive level review, your classification and billing adjustments under policy 4.3b have been confirmed as correct. This case is now considered closed. Sincerely, J. Alexander, Office of Strategic Client Management. That was it. No explanation, no apology. Just finality, dressed in politeness. Lexi caught the tension at dinner that night. Her mother's tone was clipped, saltier than usual. Caleb barely touched his food. Lexi swirled her glass of water and tried not to smile too obviously. Mom said the car company's trash now, she muttered across the table to her grandmother. Veronica didn't flinch. Sometimes trash owns the curb. Lexi blinked, tilted her head. That mean something? Veronica wiped her mouth delicately and set the napkin down. It will. Later that night, in the quiet of Caleb's office, he tried to submit the payment anyway, just to get ahead of it. But the account linked to their auto draft had a new flag. Transaction failed. Funding unavailable, action required. Retry or update payment source. He stared at the screen like it had betrayed him, then saw the system note added underneath. Note. Past due payment history tagged. Monitor for further credit events. He rubbed his eyes, muttered something under his breath, and reached for the phone, but this time, it didn't dial out. The knock came at 9:07 a.m. Sharp, controlled, and impatient. Veronica didn't flinch. She was already steeping the second pot of Earl Grey. The china was out, white with a cobalt rim. Her mother's set, untouched for years. Her apartment smelled faintly of bergamot and control. She opened the door slowly. Vanessa stood there, sunglasses still on, lips set in a line too straight to be calm. I figured you'd be expecting me, she said. Veronica stepped aside, wordless. Vanessa swept in like a storm, disguised as a brunch guest. Designer tote slung over one shoulder, no makeup but still theatrical. Like she'd come to deliver a monologue she'd rehearsed in the mirror that morning. She stopped in the middle of the living room. You've been acting weird, Veronica poured the tea. You said that at the gala too, she said, softly, setting the teacup down. Loud enough for the valet to hear. Vanessa's jaw tightened. Oh, come on, you've been circling us like a predator, Veronica cut in. That's a flattering rewrite. Vanessa stared at her. You're trying to embarrass us. No, Veronica picked up her own cup, sipped. I'm trying to remind you who you embarrassed. There was a pause, thick, hot. Veronica placed her teacup down on the saucer without a sound and reached beneath the credenza. She pulled out a slim silver folder and laid it gently on the coffee table between them. Vanessa didn't touch it right away. What is that? Publicly available ownership filings, Veronica said evenly. Standard corporate disclosures, but I highlighted the parts you'll want to read. Vanessa slowly opened it. Inside, a stapled stack. Clean, neat, color-coded tabs. The top page bore a familiar name, Coastal Mobility Group, holding structure summary. Updated, fiscal Q1, signed and filed. Major stakeholders, Harper Family Office, 52.1% controlling interest, via Granger RST LLC and CMA Shadow Holdings. Below that, another document, Lux Rides Fleet Vendor Agreements. A section was highlighted in yellow. Supply Chain Contract, Exclusive Lease Servicing Partner, Coastal Mobility Group. Vanessa's hands trembled slightly as she flipped to the next page, and the next. Page after page confirmed what she was now visibly trying not to understand. You own it, she said, voice thin. Veronica tilted her head. That's strong language. Technically, I control the group that owns the thing that supplies the thing you brag about. Vanessa dropped the folder like it burned. This is sick. You planned all this? No, Veronica said. I adjusted. Vanessa stood abruptly. You're obsessed with punishing us. You keep saying us, Veronica said, still seated. But you're the only one in my living room. The words hit like cold steel. Vanessa didn't respond right away. Her face flushed, not with shame, she didn't do shame, but with something close to fear, or the sudden realization that the game she thought she was playing was already over, and she hadn't known the rules. I could go public with this, Vanessa hissed. Leak it. Make you look like a bitter ex playing house with corporate policy. You could, Veronica said, standing now, chin lifted. And by the time anyone reads your version, the board will have moved on to next quarter's acquisitions. You'll be a bullet point in the audit report. Not even bolded. She stepped forward. I'm not here to make you look small, Vanessa. I'm here to make you remember how big I was, before you helped erase me. Vanessa's eyes didn't blink. Her mouth twitched, trying to form a comeback. But nothing came. Veronica reached over and gently closed the silver folder, pushing it back toward her guest. You can keep it, she said. That way, you won't have to Google me next time. Vanessa grabbed it, clutching it to her side like a purse, then turned toward the door without another word. At the threshold, she hesitated. Is this it? She asked. Or is there more? Veronica picked up her tea again and smiled with a gentleness that was almost maternal. Vanessa, she said softly. We're barely halfway. Vanessa stood in the hallway of Veronica's apartment, like someone who had just misread the weather and stepped into a storm without a coat. The silver folder felt heavier now, not in her hand, in her chest. Her heels clicked once, then stopped. She turned back. You, she began, then faltered. You control Lux Ride? Veronica didn't move. She didn't blink. She simply took another sip of tea, like it was the easiest question in the world. Vanessa swallowed hard. That's what this is about? Cars? Veronica tilted her head, almost amused. You think this is about cars? Vanessa looked down at the folder, flipping it open again, like the truth might have changed in the last 30 seconds. The contracts? The holdings. I control Lux Ride, Veronica said, her voice flat now, stripped of performance. And 6 other companies your household owes money to. She said it gently, not as a threat, but as a reminder. The kind that made the room colder, even with the heat on. Vanessa's mouth opened, then closed again. There were no words left, not ones that mattered. She turned and walked out the door, her pace faster now. The folder clutched against her like a life vest she didn't know how to use. Veronica didn't follow. She simply walked back into the kitchen, poured out the rest of the tea, and set the pot back on the stove. By the time Vanessa reached her car, her hands were shaking too much to unlock it. She didn't speak at dinner that night, or the next, or the one after that? Caleb noticed but didn't ask. He was too busy drafting emails. The kind of emails you send when you finally realized you're not the one holding the contract anymore. One went to LuxRide's Executive Services escalation queue, another to an old contact at a financing firm, a third, bolder, more personal, to the same address he'd emailed before. This time, he tried a different tactic. Ms. Harper, I understand there were past tensions, and I'm not here to litigate them. But surely we can agree that business is business. If we're willing to settle outstanding balances in full, I'd appreciate the opportunity to discuss a revised lease structure or at least a reduced risk tier status. Respectfully, Caleb Whitmore. He waited 2 days for a reply. What he got was a system bounce. Delivery failed. Recipient address no longer active. He blinked at the screen, refreshed his inbox, tried again, nothing. When he called the concierge line, they told him the executive email had been restructured under internal reorganization, and that all prior cases marked closed were not subject to reopening. No notes, no extensions, no room to maneuver. Lexi watched the unraveling in real time. She noticed it in the silence at dinner, the forced smiles, the pacing, the way her mother flinched every time a phone buzzed, and her father swore under his breath at his laptop like it owed him answers. And Veronica? Unbothered, steady. When Lexi visited her that Friday, she noticed something new in the apartment. Nothing dramatic, just subtle upgrades, new rugs, fresh flowers, a glass sculpture near the windowsill that looked far too expensive to be accidental. They had tea, as usual, no talk of her parents. But as she left, Lexi paused at the door. You know, she said, eyes scanning the skyline outside, they used to laugh at you when you weren't around. Veronica didn't react. Lexi turned slowly. Now they whisper about you. Still, no response. Veronica simply smiled and adjusted the collar of her sweater, like she'd heard it all before, long before it was said. Back at the Whitmore house, Vanessa stood at the kitchen island, staring at her inbox. 10 unread messages, 3 of them about overdue payments, none from Veronica. She finally spoke, just 3 words. He's not stopping. And Caleb? He didn't answer. The office had no nameplate, no framed degrees, no ego hanging on the walls, just windows, wide, endless, reflective. They caught the skyline like a held breath, just enough to remind anyone sitting inside who the city really belonged to. Veronica sat behind the glass desk, heels crossed at the ankle, a leather folder unopened beside her, screen aglow. Her name wasn't on the door. It wasn't in the directory either, but she didn't need it to be. The CEO appointment had been finalized 3 days ago. Silent, unanimous, delivered through a single-line motion from the board, and ratified by a private trust that held 52.1% of Coastal Mobility Group. A trust registered in Delaware. A trust no reporter could trace. She didn't even sign her own offer letter. Jordan did, under power of attorney. Her title now lived in the background of 1,000 dashboards, coded into permissions no one would notice, unless they tried to override something. And today, they had. She glanced at her screen again. One new system notification. Policy enforcement update. Client account. Whitmore. Caleb and Vanessa. Status, excluded from renewal eligibility due to behavioral risk. Tier C. Reason, late payments, escalation misuse, flagged third-party complaints. Veronica sipped her coffee and clicked over to the policy change log. It had gone live at midnight. Internal memo. Effective immediately, LuxRide's premium and executive tier accounts will be subject to enhanced behavioral screening. This includes financial transparency protocols, anti-fraud detection, and community reputation scoring. Influencer discount partnerships are suspended indefinitely. Any client flagged for late payments, abusive support contact, or account manipulation will be auto-excluded from renewal eligibility. It didn't have her name on it. Just the initials, VH, CEO, CMG Group, confidential. Vanessa wouldn't know until the concierge line started rerouting her calls again. Until Caleb's email received the new pre-formatted rejection. Your account has been reviewed. Due to internal policy realignment, you are no longer eligible for contract renewal. We thank you for your past participation in our premium program. Behind her, the door opened without a knock. Jordan stepped in. It's done, system-wide, no exceptions. Even the influencer tier got wiped. Couple of execs are panicking. They'll adjust, Veronica said. Or they'll leave. He smiled. You just shifted half of upper-tier social traffic in one fiscal quarter. Veronica turned back to the window. They were dead weight. Glitter on bad credit. Jordan placed a folder on the desk, crisp and navy blue. Press requests are coming in. Someone leaked the changelog. Let them guess. She didn't touch the folder. Keep my name off it. He nodded, paused. Want to see the behavioral tags? She didn't answer right away. Then, just one. Jordan tapped into the system on his tablet and turned it. Client. Vanessa Whitmore, behavioral risk. Tier C notes. Escalated complaint flagged as emotionally hostile. Repeated override requests. Payment inconsistency. Concierge staff discomfort. Veronica barely reacted. Jordan grinned. Imagine what she'd do if she saw that word. Discomfort. She'd sue the dictionary, Veronica said. He laughed, but she didn't. She was already focused on the next screen. Client attrition, growth projections, new fleets. Everything was moving, leaner, faster. Then her phone buzzed, the secure line. Tamara, she answered without breaking stride. You really went through with it, Tamara said. No hello. They're talking, everywhere. Clients are flooding social. Reps are calling in sick. Good, Veronica said, calm. Change is noisy. You just made loyalty a liability. I made disrespect expensive, Veronica corrected. Tamara exhaled, a sound somewhere between a laugh and admiration. You didn't even make a statement. Sometimes, Veronica said, eyes fixed on the skyline. You remind them without saying a word. The call ended. Outside, the city moved in its usual rhythm. Polished cars gliding through downtown. Rides scheduled, routes optimized. Every system humming like a secret. And deep inside those systems, two names sat quietly at the bottom of a locked list, flagged, frozen, and beyond repair. No override, no redemption, no renewal. And the woman who put them there? She didn't need applause. She had the title now, and they couldn't touch it. The tow truck came just before sunrise. No siren, no knock. Just a hydraulic whine, and the low thud of metal against gravel. The neighbors didn't notice, or pretended not to, but Caleb did. He stood at the upstairs window of the Whitmore house, arms crossed, sleep still crusted in the corner of his eyes, watching the matte black BMW 7 Series roll slowly down the incline of their custom stone driveway. A man in a Lux Ride jacket clipped a printed notice to the empty space where the windshield had been hours ago. The paper flapped once in the morning breeze. Repossession order. Non-payment. Tier C violation. Caleb didn't move, just closed the blinds, quietly. 2 days later, Vanessa's car was gone too. She came out of a nail appointment, frosted coffee still sweating in her hand, to an empty space where her second luxury vehicle used to sit, right between a Range Rover and someone's sleek vintage Porsche. At first, she thought it had been stolen. Then she saw the yellow chalk X on the curb, temporary marking left by a Lux Ride audit team. Removal approved. No appeal. Her scream echoed down the concrete structure of the downtown lot. By evening, the household was silent. No deliveries, no valet, no airport pickups, no quiet hum of concierge engines pulling up to the house like black-tinted validation. For the first time in 6 years, they had no cars. And Lexi? She took the bus to school. No eye rolls. No half-hearted excuses about scheduling errors. Just her headphones, and a public seat by the window, and a strange, unexpected feeling she hadn't felt in months. Relief, not because it was easier, but because it was honest. That afternoon, her grandmother's envelope arrived. Not glossy, not wax-sealed, just a clean cream square with her name in careful script. Inside, a Metro Pass, a small folded map, and a short handwritten note. You know where you're going. Don't worry about the ride. V. Lexi stared at it for a long time before slipping the pass into her wallet and tucking the letter behind her mirror. At dinner that night, she said nothing as her parents circled the kitchen, silent and embarrassed, navigating takeout bags on foot like strangers in their own home. No one mentioned the cars. No one asked where she'd gotten the new pass. But later that week, in a quiet moment, Lexi texted Veronica. "Lexi, you didn't destroy them. You made them visible." The reply came instantly. "Veronica." That was the point. Back at CMG headquarters, Jordan leaned against her doorframe, tablet in one hand, fresh espresso in the other. He looked hesitant. "That press guy from Ledger West emailed again," he said. "Thinks he's figured out the shell companies. Wants comment." Veronica didn't look up. He didn't figure it out, he guessed. Jordan nodded once, then crossed into the office. "You want to go public with this?" He didn't ask like someone offering strategy. He asked like someone asking if she was ready. Veronica finally turned her chair, slow, deliberate. Her eyes drifted toward the window. The same skyline she once watched from the edge of a leased life. Now it belonged to her. She took a long breath, exhaled, and said, "What happens if I do?" It started with a brunch invitation they couldn't decline. Saturday, late morning. The kind of day when appearances mattered more than oxygen. Caleb wore the one blazer that still fit right, the one he used to wear to press conferences. Vanessa layered on sunglasses big enough to hide the exhaustion that makeup couldn't fix. They arrived late, not dramatically, just enough to make an entrance. But when they pulled up in a borrowed sedan, the kind that looked suspiciously practical, every conversation at the marina table shifted. "Hey," someone called out, feigning casual curiosity. "What happened to the cars? Weren't you guys the Lux Ride couple?" Caleb's jaw flexed. "Supply chain issues," he said smoothly, like he'd practiced it in the mirror. "Corporate swap. They're upgrading models. We're just waiting on replacements." The lie rolled off clean. Too clean. Vanessa nodded tightly beside him, her smile just a fraction late. "Yeah, we decided to pause until they sorted out. She hesitated, reaching for the word, "evaluating our transportation footprint." The group smiled politely. No one pressed, but silence carried its own kind of pity. Across the table, one of the men, a real estate developer who never let anything go, was already scrolling through his phone under the table. It didn't take long. By dessert, someone had found it. Public repossession filing, plain as day. Whitmore, Caleb, and Vanessa. Lux Ride premium account. Assets reclaimed. Filed. Archived. Searchable. Screenshots spread faster than whispers. By Monday morning, Vanessa's phone was a graveyard of unread messages. Half concern, half curiosity. "Are you okay? Saw something online. What happened?" She ignored them all. That afternoon, she posted a photo to her social feed. A minimalist kitchen counter, a glass of green juice captioned, "Simplifying, conscious living, less is more." The comments filled fast. "Love this vibe. So proud of you for choosing sustainability. Everyone's downsizing lately. Good for you." And then, buried halfway down the thread, a single reply from an old account tagged only once before. "Tamara Green. Is that what Chase Group calls it now?" No emojis, no context. Just that one surgical line, sharp enough to slice the whole charade in half. Vanessa deleted it within a minute, but not before 30 people saw it. By dinner, the story was out. No one believed the conscious living act anymore. Caleb slammed his phone onto the counter. "She's baiting us," he said. "That friend of hers, Tamara, she's feeding this." "She's feeding her," Vanessa snapped back. "Don't you get it? Veronica's behind this whole thing. Even when she's not saying a word, she's still writing the script." He didn't argue. Couldn't, because every word of it was true. Upstairs, Lexi sat at her desk, earbuds in, pretending not to hear. But later that night, she texted Veronica anyway. "Lexi. They're trying so hard to spin it. It's wild watching them fake normal." The dots blinked for a long time before the reply came. "Veronica. People who rent their worth always panic when the lease runs out." Lexi stared at the message, half in awe, half unsettled. Outside her window, a bus hissed to a stop at the corner. Its doors opened, spilling out real people with real places to be. No gloss, no filters, no panic over perception. Down the hall, Vanessa's voice cracked into a shout. Something glass shattered. Lexi turned the volume up, let the city noise fill the space, and whispered into the dark. It's not the cars she took, it's the story. The ballroom was all glass and hush, the kind of space built for people who already had enough and just wanted to be seen having more. Spotlights traced the edges of brushed metal signage. Urban Influence Summit 2025. Power, privacy, and perception rows of upholstered chairs faced a low stage. No podium, just a circle of chairs and a single navy velvet armchair in the center, reserved. Veronica stepped onto the platform in slate gray heels and an off-black dress that didn't glint, didn't cling. It just fit. No stylist, no PR firm, no dramatic walkout music. Just her and a small wireless mic clipped to her collarbone. The panel had been teased as anonymous. An executive who reshaped the premium market from the shadows, the blurb had said. Speculation ran wild for weeks. No one expected her. Until now. Lexi sat in the front row, still, silent, wearing a black blazer that hadn't belonged to her 5 weeks ago. Her eyes didn't drift to her phone. She didn't need to record. She knew every word would be burned into her memory. Veronica adjusted the mic, paused, then spoke. Ownership, she began, isn't always loud. Sometimes it's written into the foundation, the lease agreement, the cancellation clause no one reads until it's too late. The room held its breath. I've spent most of my life watching people parade what they don't own. Cars, titles, relationships, entire careers. Pretending access equals equity. It doesn't. She moved deliberately, her hand resting on the chair's arm. We talk about status like it's something you shout, flash, prove. But the truth is the most dangerous status. She scanned the crowd. Whispers. A rustle of recognition moved through the room, the sound of people realizing they weren't just listening to an executive. They were listening to the executive, the one behind Lux Ride's pivot, the one who cracked the illusion of endless luxury without saying a word, until now. You can't rent relevance, Veronica continued. You can borrow image, lease access, even outsource authority for a while. But when the bill comes due and the doors don't open anymore, you find out exactly what you own. The room stayed pin-drop silent. Not a cough, not a shuffle. And if you're lucky, she added, voice dropping into something almost intimate. You learn to build what no one can revoke. She paused, letting the words settle. Then, with the faintest smile, status whispers loudest when it doesn't need to shout. Applause erupted, not frantic but thunderous in that restrained, respectful way reserved for people who've just taught you something about yourself. Lexi stood and clapped with them, chin high. But her eyes never left her grandmother, not for a second. Across town, in the Whitmore kitchen, Vanessa was scrolling her feed in silence. The photo stopped her thumb cold. Veronica, on stage, poised, graceful, mid-sentence, in front of a wall of branded banners and luxury sponsor logos. Lexi was in the corner of the shot, standing, applauding. Vanessa stared at the screen, her face draining. The caption read, "The woman who reminded an entire industry what power actually looks like." Behind her, Caleb looked up from a half-dead laptop. What now? Vanessa turned the screen slowly. He squinted. Recognition flickered, but his voice didn't match the weight of what he saw. She was always just boring? Vanessa didn't answer, because for the first time, she didn't believe him. She couldn't look away, and she knew, deep down, cold and certain, that no amount of spin, brand deals, or filtered posts could outrun this. She wasn't the show anymore. Veronica was. And this time, she owned the spotlight. The CMG Group headquarters didn't look like power. It looked like restraint. No gold plaques, no glass trophies, just smart steel lines, soft matte black walls, and elevators that opened only with internal authorization. The kind of building that didn't announce success. It tracked it, patented it, restructured it quietly. Lexi stood in the lobby, ID badge clipped to the lapel of a fitted navy blazer. Her heels were modest, hair tied back. Her palms were slightly damp, but her expression stayed calm, focused. She didn't fidget. Jordan met her at security, dressed in charcoal as always. a half smile playing beneath tired eyes. You ready for your first real day? He asked. Lexi nodded once. I've been ready since the panel. He handed her a slim folder as they walked to the elevator. Veronica wants you working on something direct. Private brief, just between the three of us. The elevator glided upward. No numbers, just soft light. Lexi looked down at the folder. Project, long-term ownership versus leased identity, brand control study, confidential for executive review. Only her pulse quickened. Jordan glanced sideways at her. Don't worry, you'll outpace half the room before the quarter closes. We don't do vanity titles here, she smiled. So I'll have to earn everything, he laughed softly. You sound like someone I know. They passed through the internal floor. Glass conference rooms, humming with real work, not posturing. At the end of the corridor was a door Lexi had seen once before, from the outside. She'd never stepped through it. Now Jordan pushed it open. Veronica was already inside, not behind the desk. Standing near the window, fingers wrapped around a mug of black tea. Gaze angled down at the slow churn of the city below. She turned when they entered. Lexi stood taller without thinking. Veronica's smile was faint. Welcome home, Lexi stepped forward, nerves forgotten. You really meant it. I don't say things I don't intend to deliver, Veronica said simply. Jordan will guide you through most of the back end. But this, she tapped the folder Lexi now held, is yours. Lexi flipped open the first page. Graphs, policy revisions, cultural case studies on perception, possession, permanence. She caught her breath. This is real work. It is, Veronica said. And it'll teach you more than I could have told you 5 years ago, when all they wanted you to learn was how to keep still. Lexi looked up. I don't remember being still. You weren't, Veronica said. That's why you're here. She returned to her desk, leaving the conversation right there, not cold, just complete. Lexi followed Jordan into the adjoining suite, already making mental notes. Across town, the news traveled faster than expected. Caleb slammed the door of his home office hard enough to shake the window panes. She gave Lexi a job. That job. Vanessa was already mid-rant, pacing in silk slippers with her phone in one hand, ranting to a friend who had just texted. Your daughter's at CMG? That's not a casual internship. She's 18, Caleb, 18, and Veronica has her doing what, top-level research? Caleb seethed. We need to talk to her, put some boundaries in place. She's not a pawn in this. But before either of them could move, Lexi walked through the kitchen, backpack slung over one shoulder, earbuds out. You don't get to object, she said, voice steady. You lost that when you treated her like a joke. Vanessa blinked. Lexi, we're your parents. This isn't about choosing sides. It is, she said. And I already chose. Caleb tried a softer angle. Sweetheart, we're just saying. She earned the seat, Lexi interrupted, cutting the air clean. Just like she earned the silence. They stared at her, stunned. Lexi grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge and headed for the door. Before she stepped out, she turned once more. They lost me, she said quietly, when they laughed at you. Then she was gone. And for the first time in years, neither Caleb nor Vanessa had anything left to say. The car waiting at the curb wasn't Lux's ride. It didn't need the branding, unmarked, matte black, silent as a held breath. It didn't idle, it waited. Veronica stepped inside without speaking, the door closing behind her with the quiet precision of a company that didn't need to prove it belonged. The seats were leather, soft and dark like ink before it dries. A chilled bottle of still water rested in the armrest console. There were no driver greetings, no digital welcome screens. Just motion, smooth, intentional, as the car pulled away from the curb and merged into the private access lane. Next to her, Lexi settled in. Portfolio case balanced neatly on her lap. The Chase Group logo was embossed in subtle gold on the clasp. Inside, her first full fun pitch, ready for review. You sleep last night? Veronica asked, eyes forward. Lexi nodded. A little. That's all we ever need, Veronica replied, then looked over. You ready? Lexi exhaled once, short and steady. I've been ready. The car turned onto Wilton Avenue, gliding toward the Industry Summit's underground entrance. Outside the main venue, Attendees filtered in through a series of velvet ropes and sponsor tents. All polish, all facade. But in the garage below, where the real deals moved before the cameras turned on, silence was power. The car stopped. A valet opened the door. Veronica stepped out first. He recognized her but said nothing. He didn't need to. She was known without being named. Lexi followed, heels sharp against the concrete, portfolio in hand. They didn't enter through the front. They entered through the executive service corridor. No badge scan. No questions. Just a nod from a security guard who knew which names actually mattered. The ones in the documents, not on the banners. Halfway across the marble lobby, Veronica caught movement in her periphery. Caleb and Vanessa. They were coming out of the East Ballroom, mid-conversation with two smaller investors, both still laughing about some joke Caleb had just told. But the sound caught in his throat when he saw her. Vanessa's smile faltered. She kept walking, but her shoulders tightened. Her gaze skimming over Veronica like she was glass. They didn't speak. They didn't stop. But they didn't meet her eyes either. Lexi said nothing until they were out of earshot. Veronica didn't break stride. "Let them walk," she said quietly. They leased their lane. They took the elevator to the Chase Group suite on the 24th floor, a minimalist sanctuary wrapped in smoked glass and silence. There, on a low conference table, was a simple plaque. New fund launch, SHAR, Ownership Initiative Series Les Mers, investing in overlooked founders and underestimated visionaries. Veronica ran a finger across the edge of the nameplate. "Chase Group?" Lexi asked. "Or yours?" Veronica smiled faintly. "Both, but mine doesn't need to be on every wall." She tapped the glass case beside the table. "Because it's on every record." She picked up the first file from the launch packet, flipping it open. Small companies, lean models, founders who'd been passed over by louder firms. She had built her power quietly, and now she was going to multiply it the same way. Without theatrics, without headlines. Lexi sat across from her, watching, learning. Veronica glanced up. "When we back someone, we back what they've built, not just what they show. You understand the difference now." Lexi nodded, already opening her own packet. Better than ever. Outside, the city kept moving. A line of black cars circled the summit drop-off, logos gleaming, drivers checking names. None of them mattered anymore, not in the way they thought. Veronica closed the file gently and looked out at the skyline she used to fight to belong to. Now just scenery to the structure she quietly owned. And as Lexi jotted notes in the margin of her pitch, Veronica's voice broke the silence with a memory neither of them had forgotten. "They laughed," she said, almost to herself. "When I arrived at their party in a cab." She paused, then smiled, small, sharp, complete. "The next day, I bought the company that owns their cars.